before I make my pick. I don't want to. I don't want to do the thing where I pretend to know with absolute clairvoyance who's going to win this game. I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. I think it's interesting because you can listen to The Herd with Colin Cowherd here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On his show, all of the athletes that he's been bringing on the show been picking the Broncos, which is weird because, Vegas has them as the dog in this game. And we all know Peyton Manning can't really throw the ball like he used to. And it's interesting that they're looking at this game and going, yeah, let's choose the Broncos. I don't know how much of that is their defense. I don't know how much of that is their faith in Peyton Manning. You know where I stand on both Manning and Cam. I spent this week gushing about Peyton Manning. I spent last week gushing about Cam Newton. We've got some good stuff for you today. We've also got the NFL expanding the Rooney Rule. Talk about that. That's going to be fun. You can find us on our different platforms. Got to talk about it really quickly. All the different platforms that we have: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio. We're the first thing that comes up. If you'd like to listen to us, search us on YouTube, but also you can find us on hotnewstalkradio.com. And if you search Hot News Talk Radio in the TuneIn Radio app, it's great. I highly recommend it. It's both free and on both Apple and Google devices. So you've got no excuses. None whatsoever. So before we head into Super Bowl 50 talk here on Clutch with Keon Rose, I want to talk about the NFL expanding this Rooney Rule, because I think a lot of us looked at the Rooney Rule, especially earlier on, and didn't think a lot about the consequences that it would have. And I think a lot of people were, in fact, not outraged, but definitely scratching their heads at the Rooney Rule. And I think that it turned out to be a success, that the NFL mandating teams to interview one minority coach before they interview anybody else. What we have in the league is more black coaches than when we did before the Rooney Rule. That's just a fact. And we're looking at these coaches, and they're good coaches. Mike Tomlin is the result of the Rooney Rule, and he's been successful. You've seen coaches in the past like Tony Dungy get opportunities. You've seen, Romeo Crennel probably get more than one. Jim Caldwell got a chance with the Colts and then got another chance with the Lions. And, I think it's a good thing. Ron Rivera of the Panthers, another guy, minority coach that got interviewed before anybody else and therefore was able to get, he got his job in that capacity. And look where he is. He's in a Super Bowl with Super Cam at quarterback. So, you can't look at that and say that it didn't work. And with the NFL, especially teams like the Buffalo Bills, adding women to their staff, okay? The Bills are the second team to do so, but this time in a full-time capacity. We've added female referees. You're adding women to the game of football, and they've always been there, but I think more so in the background, and certainly not in leading front office roles. What the NFL wants to do is expand the Rooney Rule to include women, especially in front office jobs, that probably wouldn't get the chance to be interviewed otherwise. You'd be passed over, you'd be looked over, and it wouldn't be something that is consciously malicious. And I think that that's the thing that I want to dispel. I don't think that anybody is locking women out of football on purpose. But it is kind of a boys' club. Not just in the game itself. It's a boys' club in the media. It's a boys' club in the sport on the field. It's a boys' club in the front office. It's a boys' club everywhere. Like, it's hard to see people like Mary Kay Cabot, who reports for the Cleveland Plain Dealer. She reports on the NFL. She's rare. Jackie McMullen of the Boston Globe, she reports on the NBA. That's rare. Women reporting on sports in a lead capacity. I'm not talking about, sideline reporter. Not that we don't need those. But I'm talking about your play-by-play announcers, your analysts, your radio hosts. are by and large overwhelmingly men. Your front office people, your GMs, your presidents and vice presidents of football operation are overwhelmingly men. So just interviewing a woman who is qualified, again, if she's qualified for the position, she should get a chance to interview. And I think that she would normally, the woman in pro sports gets overlooked time and again. I mean, it's not new. This isn't something that's magically new. I mean, it's something that's been around. It's just women have been involved in sports, and you've seen the families that have had them, the Jeannie Busses of the world. George Allen's daughter, George Allen was the coach of the Redskins in, I believe, the 70s. His daughter is involved in football. So like the Allens, it's just, we don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. And I think that the NFL is doing the right thing here. But I do have a fear. And you're listening to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. We're talking about the NFL having women in their expansion of the Rooney Rule to be interviewed before any other candidates get interviewed for that. They deserve that opportunity. I think that they weren't getting it before. I do think that that's a fair assessment, because the fact that a woman even got hired to be the quality control coach of special teams, which is hardly the most consequential job on that team, and we are all kinds of excited about it. Well, the reason why that's exciting is because women weren't getting that opportunity before, right? Like if it were run-of-the-mill, mainstream, every day, then it wouldn't be exciting. Okay, we don't celebrate when a man gets that job, because that's just a job. When a woman gets that job, that's a job that she wasn't getting before. So I think that there's a lot of good coming from that, but I have some fears for it. Okay, my fear for it is this. The ultimate fear that I have is teams will not take it seriously. Teams will not take it seriously. Here's what I mean by that. The other day, the Tennessee Titans were looking for a head coach. Okay, and they decided to move on with their interim head coach, promote him to the head coaching position. But they did interview Kevin Sumlin, the Texas A&M Aggies head coach, and he's black, and he was basically interviewed to fulfill the Rooney Rule. I don't think that anybody seriously thought the Titans were going to hire him. I actually thought that would have been a good hire if they did it. Ironically, it would have been a good hire had they chosen to do that. I think anything would be a better hire than what the choice that they made there. You know, they go with Mike Mularkey instead, and Mularkey hasn't been good anywhere that he's coached. I mean, I know that he hasn't had good teams, but again, I've talked about those fears with him. I don't know if he wasn't good because the team wasn't good, or the team wasn't good because he wasn't good. And I'm leaning towards him, because you get to team number 3 now and you're losing games. You're snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. I don't like that. I don't like that in my head coach. I think you could have looked harder, searched more, and I don't know that someone could have done worse. I don't know that someone could have done worse. He certainly knows how to handle ego and personality. He's shown that with how he dealt with Johnny Manziel. I don't know that you could have done much worse than Sumlin, but okay, fine. They chose not to go with him, but it still doesn't change the fact that interview, that job interview that the Titans held with him, is a farce. That you basically conducted the interview just to get the formality of doing the Rooney Rule out of the way. That to me is messed up. And I hope that with the expansion of this Rooney Rule, with the expansion of this and adding women to the front office of sports, especially the NFL, which is probably seeing itself more so than other sports as the most masculine. And it is really, because it's the most testosterone fueled. It's large men with lots of muscles colliding at slow car collision speeds. Okay? That to me is in and of itself, okay, the testosterone here makes this a manly sport, and we don't like women in our manly sport, okay? Like for years, you just had women banned from NFL locker rooms, even though how else do you get interviews? You get interviews in the locker rooms. The media jumps in, you surround whatever player you want to talk to, and then that's how you get interviews. Okay, and we're just worried about that for the longest time. And again, I don't think anybody's doing this on purpose. It's not something that is maliciously happening. I don't think that anyone wants to lock women out, but I think that people, human beings, are generally exclusive. We exclude one another from things frequently. Frequently. If you are at any big job, or maybe this is an experience that you have had at church or anywhere else where there's a large group of people, it's hard for you to break in. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever found that it's hard to break into a group? I mean, that's because every group has its own way of speaking, its own words, its own jokes, its own culture, even small groups. Well, the NFL's got its own culture too. We have a very popular segment on this show called Jay Asks. Jay is my girlfriend. She comes in, she asks questions on behalf of people who are not a huge fan of sports. And what I'm learning through that experience of her asking questions and me attempting to answer those questions is this, that we have words in sports that we just take for granted. And I'm trying to figure out a way to explain some of these things to her. And I realize that there are words in sports that I have just taken for granted, that I don't know how else to explain it, because being a sports fan, I've got my own way of speaking. That excludes her and anybody else like her that doesn't care and doesn't sit down and, go through Basketball Reference for hours of a day and look at the different splits of different players, okay? Statistical splits. It's like that's a thing that I do, but that's not something that she does. And so when she doesn't understand something, the verbiage, the use of words, it excludes her. And I think not having women in sports, especially in football, and in your front office, and the NFL wants to grow as this giant, massive money-making corporation, which it can't do without women. Can't do it without women. The breast cancer awareness and all of those things. It can't grow into this giant monster that it wants to be without the female dollar. Okay, it spends just as well as the male dollar. You can talk about women making less money in the workplace, but the money that you do have, your dollar is not worth more than my dollar. The NFL wants it all. Can't do that without women. And I think that it's good for the sport if you want to grow it. But I'm afraid that teams are not taking this seriously and that they're going to just interview people, interview women, just to get the formality out of the way. That's my big fear for the expansion of this rule, is that it won't really do anything. And I don't know how you can enforce a real interview. I don't know how you enforce that. I don't think you can even. Okay, so that story is huge. It's going to be developing. I think that the players don't have a problem with it, right? Like the players don't care. Ultimately, you get them to the field, you get them hitting each other, you get touchdowns, you get first downs, you're just getting your team victories. That's what matters to them. And they don't really care as long as the result is wins and or the result is them getting paid. And I don't think we quite accurately sum up how much guys just like getting paid. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. Shifting gears here for a second because there was a really cool story that came out on Deadspin.com, and I got a kick out of it because I'm a huge fan of Key and Peele. And if you don't know who Key and Peele are, they were on Mad TV for years, and then they branched off and they did their own sketch show on Comedy Central for, I think, 5 or 6 seasons. And it is hilarious stuff. They've done a number of even sports-related jokes, like their East-West Bowl game sketches. Those are absolutely hilarious. And they've got a bunch of other ones. They're just funny guys. And the story is that they want to live stream the Super Bowl. What they want to do is provide commentary on the Super Bowl while it's happening, and you can just tune in and watch that stream live. I don't know where you can find it because I haven't heard too much else about it, but they've created these two sketch characters to live stream the Super Bowl. And I've heard people bounce this idea around before, and I've always liked it. The idea of a secondary commentary, a funnier commentary. I'd listen to two funny guys do the commentary of a game. And don't get me wrong, I like Al Michaels, okay? And I like Chris Collinsworth. I do. I just think that if a game is a blowout, instead of listening to Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth pretend like this game actually has meaning or that this game is going to somehow turn around magically, and it could, I'd rather turn to the funnier guys and just hear jokes. I'd listen to that. I'd rather turn to the funnier guys and just hear jokes. And here's the thing. Here's the ultimate problem, right, with bad games. 2 years ago, the Denver Broncos were in the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning. And he was going up against Russell Wilson, Seattle Seahawks. We all know how that one ended. It was a lopsided blowout. The Broncos never got going, only scored 8 points in that game. It was over before the first quarter was done. It was a bad game. Your temptation is to turn it off. Okay, it's the Super Bowl, so you just kind of stand around and talk to each other more, or you just pay attention to the commercials more, you just start goofing around. But your temptation is to turn it off. Okay, and I do this all the time. If a game is terrible, I'll turn it off. Telling you the other night, Tennessee and Kentucky played each other. Kentucky jumped out to a 21-point lead on the Vols. And I tuned it out. Stopped paying attention to the game. Well, what if I had kept on paying attention? I would have been able to see the Vols actually come back in a game in which Punter Jr. and Armani Moore blew it up. They did a great job. Well, if I had a funny option to turn to, I wouldn't actually miss a good turnaround of a game, but I wouldn't be bored out of my skull if the game doesn't turn around. I have more to lose here, and I would really like somebody to consider this. I'm begging anybody at all. Let some comedians do some games in a secondary broadcast. Worst comes to worst, you just attract fans of comedy that just want to see people be silly. Right? The only problem that you can have is if the comedians aren't funny. But since you can back up the dump truck of money into the lap of John Gruden and Mike Tirico, then why not back up the dump truck of money into the lap of Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld? Or Louis C.K. and another funny person. I don't know, Amy Schumer. Somebody. Just make it funny. See where it goes. I'd be way interested in that. So we'll see. Finally, the revolution is here. Key and Peele might make it happen. And nobody, and I'm telling you this, nobody is more excited about that than me. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for giving me just a little bit of your time listening to me on YouTube or TuneIn Radio or hotnewstalkradio.com. However you're listening, I appreciate you. And coming up, we'll be talking a little bit more about Super Bowl 50. I've got the picks. I've got a breakdown of the game. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Cam and Peyton and what these two defenses are going to have to do to stop each other. Because, look, Peyton Manning can't throw the ball like he used to. But, you know, I was watching some highlights of him today. That ball is ahead of schedule. It's going in there slow, but it's ahead of the defense. He's beating you with his mind. And we all know the story on Cam. Okay? Big, strong, fast. Nothing more to say there. So we'll be back with more of Super Bowl 50 talk, which you can listen to here on Hot News Talk Radio this Sunday, home of the Super Bowl in Chattanooga. Next.
AM 1240. 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, the home of Super Bowl 50. From pregame to postgame, the Panthers face the Broncos. Here on the exciting action live, Tennessee Valley's home for the NFL and Super Bowl 50. AM 1240, HotNewsTalkRadio.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Laying burdens down at the Woodhouse. Leave all your worries at the door. The perfect gift for the perfect match. Surprise her with a Woodhouse gift card. Call us today at 423-443-4478 or visit us online at chattanooga.woodhousespas.com.
On your signature, you can get $150,000. Can you believe that? $150,000 on your signature. Hi, I'm Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source. There's a program right now that you can get $150,000 on your signature with no pledge of collateral or personal guarantee. Call me at 423-875-5621 to learn more. 423-875-5621. You've been thinking about starting a business and becoming self-sufficient. Don't do it on your own. I have a proven track record for the last 13 years, a 96% success rate. I can guide you into a franchise where you will pay yourself through the startup phase with very low or little risk. Call me now. I'm Bruce Krebs at 423-875-5621. 875-5621. And make sure to listen to the Entrepreneur Hour every other Wednesday from 11 to 12 o'clock here at AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Call me now, 875-5621.
You need a place for your party or maybe a wedding reception for 100 or even more. Maybe you'd like to host a small trade show for your business and you need a very affordable venue. Are you looking for a place for your birthday gala or services to start up a church? Look no further than the Hidden Gem in Hickson. It's an overlooked, newly appointed reception hall right here in Hickson, Tennessee. Big space, small price. That's right, big space, small price. Call Mr. Chu and ask for a tour. 316-7388. That's 423-316-7388. He'll tell you a lot more about the venue. Rent this venue today. Just call 423-316-7388 and ask for Mr. Chu.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Expect clear skies to continue through the nighttime. Cold and frosty again overnight, lows 30 to 32. For Saturday, though, a beautiful day. Lots of sunshine, a nice warming trend, highs 60 to 63. And for Sunday, continue dry and pleasant, highs back into the lower 60s. This forecast is brought to you by Hamilton Medical Center in Dalton. Proud to be named #1 by CareChex for medical excellence in overall hospital care in the Northwest Georgia and Chattanooga region. And I'm 1412 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Hoare.
On AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
When the weather turns bad, turn to AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. On the net, hotnewstalkradio.com. Follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. From the Hot News Talk Radio Weather Center. Chattanooga, we've got you covered. When the weather turns bad, the Tennessee Valley turns to Hot News Talk Radio.
Go, 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 go.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
So I'm looking through the news during the break, and I read this report about Rodney Harrison. Rodney Harrison was talking about how he'd stopped Cam Newton. He was on the Dan Patrick show. He was being interviewed by Dan Patrick, who, by the way, is a great interviewer. Rodney Harrison said that how he'd stop Cam Newton is to hurt him. Basically, go for his knees. And I have this question for all of you, really, because I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think about a player saying that he would go after another player's knees to win. For me, that's dirty. I understand that you do whatever it takes to win, but I think that there are limits to that. There has to be limits to that, right? Like, you can't just do anything it takes to win. We have regulatory systems in this country because, sure, we believe in capitalism. We believe it works, but you can't just do anything it takes to win. Otherwise, you end up with Bernie Madoff. The Bernie Madoff made money by lying, cheating, and stealing from people. Not just random people he knew personally, that he called friends. And Rodney Harrison is saying, I'm going to go for his knees. And I know coaches have probably said that before. I was listening to Mike and Mike this morning, and Mike Golick was saying that he's heard coaches say that to go for a guy's knees. But that's just, to me, that's just wrong, and that's just dirty to the point where you can't enjoy a game like that. It's one thing if a guy just gets injured, because quite frankly, that's life. You know, we watched the NBA Finals last year, Warriors, Cavaliers. Kyrie Irving gets injured in the first game of the series, and Kevin Love was injured in the Boston series before that. And, you know, guys get hurt. And if they're hurt, I don't feel bad for you for getting injured. That's just bad luck. And I'm sorry, but part of winning a championship is luck. And I understand that. But it's one thing that a guy was just unlucky. You hit him, he landed wrong, and he's injured. And it's a completely different thing when you're saying, I would go after a guy's knees. Because you could injure him for more than just that game. That's his career. That's his livelihood. How he makes a living is just like you, is to play football. And if you take out his knees, you take away his ability to go out there and play football, to put food on his family's table. You do. That is the most messed up thing. That is the most messed up thing that I've seen. Okay? And I can't defend that in any way. I have trouble doing that. It's because it's just so wrong. And I understand that there's discussions about sportsmanship and kindness and all of those things, especially with this Super Bowl. We talk about how much Cam Newton dances and how much he celebrates. And you could argue, okay, that's not very sportsmanlike, but no one's getting injured from that. All of the people whose feelings are getting hurt while Cam dances are still going to be able to play football later. You're going to still be able to walk later. Cam's dancing is not doing anything to them. But when I think when you cross the line of unsportsmanlike conduct is when you're purposely going after a guy's knees to take him out, to injure a person on purpose. So, which is why I had trouble with what Kelly Olynyk did to Kevin Love last year. Kelly Olynyk said that it was an accident. I'm looking at that replay. He didn't reach out for the basketball and they got tangled up while they were both reaching for the basketball. Kelly Olynyk grabbed Kevin Love's arm and just pulled it out the socket. Okay? This is not the WWE, my friend. You can't do that here. We don't allow it. It's not acceptable. You can't just yank on a guy's arms. And Rodney Harrison, you can't just go after a guy's knees.
I'm not having it.
No, you just can't do that. You can't do that. And I am shocked that he sat there and said that. I understand he's not playing in the league anymore. There's nothing you can do about it, but there's the limit, right? Like, I understand when you're tackling Rob Gronkowski, you're a defensive back and you're 5'10" and you weigh 170. You're going to go after Gronk's knees because I don't know how else you are supposed to tackle that guy. Gronk is 6'6", 250. Like, I might be on the wrong side of his weight. 250. I'm being generous. He's huge. I don't know how else you're supposed to tackle that guy. But you're not going to Gronk's knees to injure his knees. You're just going to where his balance is the worst. Rodney Harrison is saying take out his knees to injure him so that he won't be able to come back and beat you anymore. That's insanity. That's insanity. At that point, what we're not watching is football. We're just watching brutality, just flat out brutality. And at that, I don't want to watch it. Okay, if I want to watch people fight, I'll watch UFC, I'll watch boxing. What I'm watching is a physical component of a game combined with a mental aspect. There is no mental aspect involved in cause ACL tear, injure other player. That's stupid. That is literally a strategy that a caveman could come up with. That is a caveman strategy. And I don't want to watch a bunch of cavemen play a game. I want to watch a bunch of human beings play a game, and while they try and trick and outwit one another and outmuscle one another, that's the beautiful game. I mean, soccer's the beautiful game, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. The point is that's what makes the game fun to watch. If I'm watching a bunch of dudes trying to injure each other, I'm watching a gladiator match. Not interested in that. None whatsoever. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for listening to me in all of the different ways that you can. On YouTube, if you search Hot News Talk Radio, in the TuneIn Radio app in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow, press play. You can have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. And, of course, you can go to hotnewstalkradio.com. Just saying. Just tossing that out there.
You like that? You like that?
I do like that. hotnewstalkradio.com. So, I wanted to talk about this Kansas story too. Just a basketball story that just got out of hand, because before I get into my picks, I promise they're coming. But Bill Self and the head coach of Kansas, he does a lot of making the NCAA tournament, shall we say. I wanted to say winning, but like when I think about it, it's like, no, he doesn't do a lot of winning. Bill Self hasn't won a really big game in a long time, despite the fact that he's able to draw a lot of attention to Kansas and a lot of great players to Kansas. He had Joel Embiid and Andrew Wiggins a year ago. He hasn't done a ton of winning. But you know, I'm taking cheap shots at Bill Self right now, because Bill Self had a player. They were playing Kansas State. It's a rivalry game, and Bill Self is trying to leave the court, and the team is winning. The clock's winding down, and he has a player that kind of dunks the ball before the game's over, and Bill Self just is upset, and he goes to his press conference, and he says the kid committed a bleep move. He talks about this not being the first time that he's had trouble with this kid, and that that he basically is reprimanding this kid strongly. He uses profane language involving an 18-year-old that does, like, to me, that's just shocking. It doesn't make any sense. And for what? Because he dunked in a blowout? This is a problem that you can handle, because I think it is a problem. We're talking about sportsmanlike conduct. I think in college, that's where it's most important. If you're blowing somebody out, let it go. Okay, but he wasn't even dunking to run up the score some more. The game was just winding down. He had a ball. He was near a basket. How many times have you seen guys shoot free throws or go for dunks or block shots that don't count after the free throw or foul whistle is called? Okay, like you're getting ready for free throws. Whoever has the ball just kind of chucks it at the basket. It was that kind of play. He wasn't trying to run up the score. It didn't seem like. He just had the ball, and he was near the basket, and he knew this wasn't going to count for anything, so he just dunked it. It was harmless. It was completely harmless, and Bill Self loses it. And again, if that's what you stand for, if you want your guys to stand by, we don't run up the score against a team that we've already beaten pretty badly, then that's fine. I'm behind that mentality. Where Bill Self went wrong is to sit down at a press conference and basically use a term for genitalia to refer to one of the kids who plays for him. And the kid's 18, okay? He's 18 years old. And while I am uncomfortable with the prospect of Jim Harbaugh, Michigan's head coach, having sleepovers at his recruits' houses, that's ultimately harmless. It's weird. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm going to continue coming after Harbaugh on that one. That is strange, but it's harmless. Where you get into calling a kid foul language. I mean, I can't play the bite on the air. Okay, I can't. Why did he say that? I have no idea. But when you start using foul language to basically describe children, because he's 18 years old, he's barely a man, and just by the legal definition of the law, that's still a child. You're a grown adult. Bill Self is a grown man. Why does he have to do that? And why does he have to do this in front of the media? Why not take the kid aside to your office and say, you know what? We don't do that here. And even if you've had trouble getting his personality in check before, you're the adult. You're the adult. I'm not going to be in a room full of 7-year-olds, and then if the 7-year-olds are annoying me and I'm having trouble getting them under control and they're not my children, let's say, and I slap one, I'm not going to say the 7-year-old made me do it. I'm the adult in the room. Bill Self is a grown man. He has a family and kids of his own. Would you, Bill Self, like somebody calling your child that to the media? That clip is on YouTube. It's going to get played back forever of you saying that this kid did a bleep move. What are you, insane? How little self-control do you have that comes out of your mouth with cameras rolling? That can't wait? I mean, at least if you're going to yell at the kid, and I'm not a huge fan of yelling at other people's children either, but if you're going to yell at him, at least go behind closed doors. At least have the dignity to be one-on-one with him and tell him that you didn't like it and tell him why. Even if you feel you have to raise your voice, that's still better than leaving your player out to dry to the media. To the media. I mean, this makes me so livid, especially since that kid is playing for you for free. Bill Self isn't going to get fired anytime soon. Okay? It's not going to happen. And because he's a good enough basketball coach to continue being perpetually paid by Kansas. Bill Self isn't going anywhere. And he makes millions of dollars, and he makes millions of dollars because a bunch of kids play for him for free. You don't call him names to the media. You just don't. That is not something that you can do. Okay, and I understand that the discipline is a real thing. I am for discipline. I am pro discipline. Don't let the inmates run the asylum. But don't leave him hanging out to dry in the media. That's your player. Quarterbacks don't do that to anybody. Coaches don't do that to anybody. In any league or sport, you don't leave your guys hanging out to dry in the media. I mean, we've got so many examples of that being the case that it's just so strange to see it in a college aspect, especially when this guy's a kid. He's 18 years old, okay? You didn't have trouble with a 30-year-old. And why it's interesting to see college coaches make the jump to the NBA, right? Because you're jumping to the NBA where these guys are getting paid. They do think rather highly of themselves. And if you say certain things to them, they're not going to stand there and take it. And I think the example that often gets used for this is Latrell Sprewell choking out his coach because, quite frankly, you had that one coming. Okay, you did. You did. When you don't provoke large people. It's just common sense. But this guy's a kid. You can't do that to him. You just can't. It's wrong. It's morally wrong. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio. You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose. That's me. Thank you for joining me today. And finally, without further ado, the Super Bowl.
You like that? You like that?
It is time. I do like that. I do like Super Bowl 50. It's here on Hot News Talk Radio. We're the home of the Super Bowl. And I have my picks. Okay. And I don't like to do this, and I grumble and I complain and I whine all while I do it, because let's face it here. It's what you want. You listen to a sports show before the Super Bowl, you want the host to give you who he thinks is going to win the Super Bowl, so you can agree or disagree with him, call me a dummy or whatever the case may be. So here we are at this particular moment. Okay, the Super Bowl to me, and I have a little bit of contrarianness in my heart. I don't do things that other people do, and I'm not going to lie, I don't see myself as this lofty, special person levitating above everybody else. Sometimes I don't do things that other people do because they're doing it. And I just don't like to follow rules. So there you go. I got a little bit of anti-establishment in me. I guess everybody at the station does. I just don't like to follow rules because I got told that those were the rules. And so, if you can see where I'm going with this, everyone seems to think that the Panthers are going to beat the Broncos. And I'm not choosing the Broncos just because everyone's being different, but I feel a sneaking suspicion that this game is going to be closer than most people think that it is. If the game is a blowout, it's because Carolina got rolling and never stopped. I'm not going to choose a Denver blowout. If this game is a blowout, Cam, it's because Super Cam got rolling and never stopped, which is what happened to the Carolina Panthers or the Arizona Cardinals in the NFC Championship game. And they got the tar beaten out of them because Carson Palmer couldn't stop making mistakes, and the Panthers got the ball rolling and just never stopped. Like, the momentum stayed right there. It looked for a second it might swing back Arizona's side. Carson Palmer throws another interception, and then Carolina just takes it and goes. But I'm looking at this game, and I'm looking at it, and I see a huge potential for this to be a grinded-out defensive battle that's close. And I like the Broncos if the game is close. If you look at the playoff games that the Broncos have won against the Steelers and against the Patriots, those are games that are ultimately close games. They were ultimately close. And I think it favors them because Peyton Manning hasn't been making mistakes, not in the postseason. And we've talked about this all the time. We talk about it. Trent Dilfer being our great example of the game manager that can win you a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer is the game manager that can win you a Super Bowl. But you know what? Old Peyton Manning is the greatest game manager the game has ever seen, because he's got the mentality of young Peyton Manning with the maturity of old Peyton Manning. That's the best game managing quarterback right now in the league. He's not a playmaker anymore. He's gonna have one or two plays in him. And I think that gives the Broncos enough of an offensive push that if the game is close, if the Broncos are able to contain Cam Newton, and they can because of DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller on that defensive line, those guys are hounds, and they find you, okay? And I saw some plays in that Arizona game where the Cardinals defense stood up and got to Cam. They brought him down. The problem was that Carson Palmer kept giving the ball back. That's really the problem with the Cardinals, especially in the first half of that game. They kept giving the ball back. So you'd stop Cam, you'd get him to throw a pick, or you'd cause a fumble, or you'd get a 3 and out, and then Carson Palmer would start to fill you with hope. They're marching up the field. They're going somewhere. Oh, look, Carson Palmer just threw the ball into triple coverage, and it's an interception because, of course, it is. He threw the ball into triple coverage. He just kept giving the ball back, but you're not looking at a situation. I don't think Peyton's going to be giving the ball back. I don't think you're going to see a Peyton Manning interception game. I think you're going to see a Peyton Manning 1 touchdown, no interception, 150-yard game, like a very slightly below average quarterbacking game for Peyton Manning, where he makes 0 mistakes. And if that's the case, the Broncos will win this game. Okay, the Carolina defense is fantastic. I don't want to take anything away from them, and I do think they can win. I think they have a greater chance of winning this game overall just because of the firepower. But I think that the Broncos will win the game because the steady hand of Peyton Manning on offense, the running attack with C.J. Anderson, when he's been running well, they've done a great job. And there's a strong correlation there between C.J. Anderson running well and Peyton Manning being steady. And the defense of the Broncos is the best in the league. And look, we're talking this Broncos team could be every bit as good, if not right below, like a tier below, 85 Bears good. That's how good this defense is. It's one of the best I've ever seen. They track quarterbacks, man, and they don't have to blitz you. Wade Phillips is the defensive coordinator. We know Wade loves to blitz. Wade Phillips, nobody on this planet, probably more than Wade Phillips, loves to blitz. Maybe Todd Bowles with the Jets, because he blitzes like 75% of the time or something like that. Wade Phillips did not blitz against Brady. He didn't blitz. And they beat Brady up. Okay, now Brady's not Cam, but they got back there. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying if this game gets close, if the game is close, give me Manning. That's it seems it seems contrary, but the more that I think about it, and again, this is how mistakes get made because, you know, every NCAA tournament that I've been involved in filling out a bracket involves, you know, your busted bracket is the game that you overthought way too much. I might be overthinking this way too much, but I'm looking at the Broncos. I'm looking at that defense. Okay. And the Panthers have a great defense as well, but the Panthers rely more on their offense to win. The Broncos need their defense to win, and it's the best in the league. And Peyton's not going to have to go out there and beat the Panthers defense. He's just going to have to be steady enough. Three field goals and a touchdown. And that's good enough to win it. I don't think we're going to see a high-scoring Super Bowl. I think we're going to see a very dramatic one. I think we're going to see a very good one because we've had the run of great Super Bowls, with the exception of the stinker of the Seahawks and Broncos. I think we're going to see a very good one. But I think ultimately the Broncos pull through. Peyton Manning rides off into the sunset as a two-time Super Bowl winning quarterback. And if Cam wins it, if the Panthers win it, I've got a lot of Panther friends. There's no sweat off of my back. I like Cam. I like the Panthers. I like Luke Kuechly. I think that this is the year that they learn through a loss in the Super Bowl. That's what I think. But that's just me. What do you think? Hit us up on Facebook, Hot News Talk Radio, or on Twitter, Hot News Talk Radio, or me personally at Sports Cloud. I do respond, and I love to hear from you. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, the home of Super Bowl 50. From pregame to postgame, the Panthers face the Broncos here on the Exciting Action Live, Tennessee Valley's home for the NFL and Super Bowl 50. AM 1240, HotNewsTalkRadio.com.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio with your Hot News Now update. A shooting on Brainerd Road caused a 7-car pileup yesterday at 10:45 a.m. An SUV was fired upon by an unknown assailant. A pregnant woman was inside the car. She was unharmed. It doesn't appear that anyone was seriously injured during this altercation or during the crash. The CPD violent crime investigators are still following all leads at this time. There is no suspect information or motive available now. The CPD is asking anyone with any information regarding this crime to call 423-698-2525. The investigation is still ongoing. More information will be released when it's available. The CPD arrested 2 men on Wednesday on Jersey Pike after seeing them allegedly smoking marijuana inside their car. An officer approached the vehicle and detained the 2 men. Further investigation revealed that the 2 occupants of the car were in fact armed. They were arrested for possession of a controlled substance and possessing a firearm with the intent to go armed. If it's going on in the Tennessee Valley, it's going on Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.